We're fucked.
Oh,
Oh.
hello, everybody.
Just as we go live. Great.
So here is the deal. Thanks everyone for joining us live and for people watching. So Brian says he can't hear me, and I'm pretty sure that it's
Hi,
on
everybody. I should say something.
Maybe can you comment on the chat if you could hear
All I see
myself
is
or Brian?
Elon flapping his gums.
So we'll ask there, and then anyone who's watching live after the fact,
as usual,
you can go ahead and.
Oh, I hear you on the live feed, Elon.
So you do hear me? They can hear us both. So okay.
Oh, I can hear me on the live feed too.
Brian is ridiculous. Like, I don't know what he's doing.
Okay. Let me try refreshing.
I don't understand this guy and this tech. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't blame him. It's not nice. But yeah, what I was gonna say is if you're one of these people who likes watching live, watching the video after the fact, sorry, you'll have to just like forward ahead because Dimitri might not join for another like 10 minutes, but I'm happy to hang out with the chat room and hopefully we'll get through these technical issues and we can have some fun in the meantime. Let's see, Brian, can you hear me now? There you go.
Wow.
We've had this like multiple times. So I don't know why you keep telling me like should I refresh?
Because I think like, it's been
consistent. No, it's been consistently the same problem where you can't hear me until you refresh.
Well, you always tell me to go one step too far to fix the problem. Buy a new computer.
Is this still the same? You
told me to restart. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
We have this conversation like every time now.
Well, maybe one day you'll change. I don't know. I'm getting a new phone. Pretty excited about that.
Wow, that's really exciting.
So I guess you are still prepping.
I'm just putting some notes together.
Yeah, so why don't you keep doing that, and I could hang out with Elijah and Alex. We've got.
I mean, it is called Google Hangouts.
Yeah, so we'll hang out.
Okay, I'm muting myself.
Okay, Brian will mute himself, and we'll see how he can do. And if one of you guys wants to join me for the until. Yeah, if either of you want to join me, just say so in the chat room, and I'll send you a link on Facebook of how to join the Google Hangout. In the meantime, probably was an awkward decision to. I shouldn't have even gone live, but Brian was like, "Oh, let's find out which of us is the one that."
No, that was you. That was you.
You were saying, should I restart? Well, you were saying that I should refresh, and I knew that wasn't the case.
Wow, what a smart guy.
The video looks like he's got 1980s metal hair. We got some stuff.
Never your fault.
This one wasn't. This one was
okay, I'm trying to get ready here.
Okay, so don't mute yourself. Mute like you're hearing.
Don't debase me.
All right, well, I might have to. Okay, so since we're waiting for Dimitri, the plan is that we're actually going to be going through every single team in the league. So this is going to be a challenge to try to do this. I think we might be going for like 3 hours here. So Alex and Elijah, I guess you guys can hopefully you could hang for all of that, or even if you stay for only a little bit, that'll be cool. In the meantime, there's some moves we can talk about that have happened that we're not going to get to this episode. How about Radko Gudas for Matt Niskanen trade? Okay. Oh, Elijah said he could join? All right. In that case, I'd rather talk to him. So I'll send you the link, Jaja, on Facebook. Okay. So just 1 second, and then we can actually have a real chat. So 1 sec. And again, everyone who has decided to watch the video as your way of consuming the podcast, just keep skipping ahead till you hear Dimitri, and then you'll know that you're on the actual proper version. Though I do edit the show every week, so it might be, maybe check out that version, because then you get all the mistakes we make are gone. It makes us sound like we say everything perfectly right on the first try. It's pretty impressive, the way I can make myself sound, which is different from reality. That was actually just me trying to ramble at the same time, send a link. So I don't even know what I said just there. Okay, Elijah, I sent you the link to come join. So feel free to join. Alex is saying he loves the deal. Gudas, for who? Okay, so Gudas is always a hot commodity in my keeper league because of hits and blocks. Probably will have better plus minus this season too. Interesting. I guess to me, there's to me, it's all about the ice time, right? Like I feel like Gudas was getting lower ice time last season on Philly than Niskanen was getting on Washington. Like Niskanen was playing like 21, 22 minutes a game. Like he wasn't getting the power play time, so he wasn't like a big offensive contributor, but just straight up minutes. So if like Gudas is taking over Niskanen's minutes in Washington, then that could be great for Gudas. If he could just have more minutes to throw those hits and block those shots, that'd be great. But there's no reason to like expect that. Like I'm sure Washington got him not to like replace Niskanen, sort of to do something different. So I think that'll be the interesting thing. But obviously, if Washington gave up Niskanen for him, though, I also feel like there's contract implications, right? Like Niskanen makes a lot more money, so Washington has saved themselves some cap, and also Philly agreed to take on some of Gudas's contracts. So Philly like really wanted Niskanen, and yeah, I'm still waiting for Elijah to join. But I guess as far as fantasy impact goes, I guess I could see this being good for Gudas. Like this is an improvement for him because like Alex said, that would help him for his plus minus. Elijah, you here? But also, like, not only
am I? Oh my god!
I've been
a patron for like 2 months, and I'm on now. This is freaking me out. Sorry to interrupt.
No reason to freak out. This isn't even the real show. But I guess
I'm refreshing because I can't hear Elijah.
Oh my god!
Can you hear me now?
Brian,
do we have to play that Verizon game? Sorry.
I hear you fantastically, and Brian's got to figure out his whole setup there. I don't
really get the trade. It's kind of two bruisers, right? And isn't Matt Niskanen's contract huge?
Yeah,
like, isn't it like $5 million?
But Niskanen, yeah. So he has a big contract for still like 4 years. Brian, do you hear us both now? Oh, he's muted. So
I hear you both. You know, when I've hosted a call, other people in the call have had the problem. So you're just feeling you have a privileged position, Elon, where Hangouts favors your audio.
I see. So I'm like being smug, but
it's
really
like a known bug here. It's not me.
Well, we need new technology. Maybe one day someone else will come up with a competitor. Facebook has like Facebook Live, but I don't really get how to do that yet. I feel like that's something
I don't think I want to get it.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So hopefully this will work. Okay. So Elijah, you were saying, okay, let's like look into this because I haven't like prepped this, but yeah, you're right. Like Niskanen, it makes a lot more and he has a longer contract, but at the same time, he's not just like a bruiser, right? Like at one point I remember that he bumped John Karlsson from the top power play like 2 or 3 seasons ago. It didn't last, but I feel like he's like a bigger minutes guy that's supposed to be like, you know, more capable, maybe like to drive play. Maybe he could help a little more with the offense than Gudas would, but it's a big price to pay to take on that big contract and take on some of Gudas's contract.
Yeah, I mean, Radko's definitely a peripheral guy, which I totally get. I think I definitely remember Niskanen taking power play time, but like you said, I think that's several years ago, and then he kind of had his peak in Pittsburgh, right? So I just don't see the gain from Philadelphia from it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
They also waived or they like bought out Andy McDonald's contract. So I guess they do need like bodies on the ice. Like I think that they're looking at Niskanen as like a top 4 pairing, like, or, you know, like one of the top pairings. So like, I don't know, like it's not I understand for cap reasons, but I feel like for the team in general, it's kind of like cool that they'll have like Gostisbehere, Provorov, Sanheim, Niskanen as like maybe like, although Gostisbehere, to be fair, actually doesn't really play in the top 4 pairing, right? Like as far as even strength goes, Gostisbehere doesn't play big minutes. So if anything, maybe they're like, okay, fine, now we have like a solid guy we could play at even strength, and it'll be like Niskanen, Provorov, Sanheim, and like a Robert Hagg type, and then Gostisbehere can play on like the bottom defense pairing, and then, you know, rest up for the power play. Like, but yeah, I don't know. Hard to judge these like trades that are like sort of more not like the biggest offensive contributors. But I do agree with Alex anyways that I think it might be fun now to draft Radko Gudas, and assuming that he gets to play similar minutes, maybe he'll get more offense, but the similar number of peripherals.
I just saw Alex's message. Can I start with the joke then to introduce myself?
Please.
What is the difference between a dirty bus station and a lobster with breast implants?
A dirty bus station and a lobster with breast. Okay, what is it?
One's a crusty bus station and the other one's a busty crust station.
Nice. I like it.
I shouted the lobster into my muted microphone. But that's how those jokes sometimes.
Oh, I see. Very good. Brian muted himself in the middle of while he was talking. Good stuff. Okay. Okay, next trade talk. It's like
BT Dubs, Elon. If we start like at 9 I think we gotta make this a two-parter.
I mean, I got my Red Bull. I'm ready to go.
Okay.
So, and I could also like finish up with Dimitri.
You would love that, so you could steal the spotlight.
Hey, all I know is that I've got plans,
Bad talk
Brian.
Me.
Well, I'm not gonna bad talk you, though. I do have a lot of stuff. Well,
you do. You sure? I mean, I'll get to it when we start the show. But you sure?
Well, just because I wrote it in my notes doesn't mean I'm gonna say it. The thing is, okay, Alex, here's the deal. Like, I listened through these episodes we did with Dimitri at the start of the season. The whole kind of idea. Oh, hey, Dimitri's here.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
All right. Hey, Brian, can you hear me okay, Dimitri?
I can hear you great.
Okay, great. Brian,
I'm refreshing now.
Okay, Brian has this issue where when he joins
Google Hangouts has this
Google Hangouts has an issue where apparently when people join, Brian can't hear them and he has to refresh.
Oh, that's annoying.
So, Elijah, thanks for helping me.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave. Hi, Dimitri.
Hey, what's going on?
I opened up the floor to the people listening live since.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you've got some fans, and I gotta be honest. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that you were on camera last time. Like, I don't think I saw what you looked like.
I think I was on camera, but I don't know if we recorded it on camera. I feel like when we started talking, we did a camera bit, but then it was like really distracting because it kept switching from one person to another.
Oh, I see. I don't know. I'm getting the sense. Maybe I just have bad memory, but I feel like I never knew that you looked like this. But,
yeah, I'm just wondering, Ilan, what about? Oh, hey, Dimitri. By the way, what about Dimitri's appearance has caused you to be so surprised that you didn't think you'd seen him before?
Not surprised.
Is it like looking in a mirror? By the way,
have you seen my profile picture on Twitter? I feel like
Okay, let me look. I've been messaging you. You know what? But you're far away in that picture. I've never actually like clicked on it.
I don't think he's that far away. He's just
far
small.
away. It's literally a picture of me.
I don't know. Okay, when I'm on TweetDeck and I see like the tweets, it's like a little circle, like taking up like maybe 10 by 10 pixels.
Yeah.
And even if I click your name, it's still the same size. I have to, but now that I click the picture, then it goes into your actual page, and now I see like close up. And you've got a much heavier beard in your profile photo than you do right now.
Yeah, I usually do. It's hot these days in Vancouver. You got to breathe a little.
Nice. Okay. Well, I just looking good, but like honestly, I don't think it would be rude of me to say that I'm looking in a mirror because I could only wish. But now this is getting awkward.
All right. Well, let's. Are we gonna do this then, or what?
Right. That's not on the show.
Yeah.
That's just for Elijah and Alex in the chat room.
Nice.
Question: Are we gonna have like an audio timer that we hear go off?
No.
Like I have a car horn all set up to go.
That sounds very annoying.
Yeah, the thing is, I feel like after like it'll be like fun for the first couple times, and then after a while, both us and the listeners will probably be like, "Oh God, not like just traumatized every 4 minutes."
You don't want to hear 31 like augas.
Yeah, maybe not. I can set it on my phone. I can set it on my phone, but this time we can actually like strictly.
Do you want to split it up? Do you want to swap this time, Dimitri? We'll do Western Conference first to be your show, and then we'll do Eastern Conference for our show.
Yeah, well, I'm actually much more prepared to lead the conversation on the East.
Oh, okay. So I'll lead the conversation on the West.
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't matter in terms of which, how we divvy it up in terms of putting it on your podcast versus mine. But just in terms of like, I guess it would make more sense for the Eastern Conference to be on mine, just because I'm more prepared to host it.
And maybe that also makes more sense because maybe people
we did that last time too. No, everyone's gonna listen to the full thing.
Maybe there are PDO cast aficionados that were like, "I'll listen to the East, but I'm not going and checking out this other podcast. I don't have time for that." So.
No, they're gonna do the full thing. It was fun. I actually listened back to both of them, and I thought we nailed much more than we got wrong. I thought.
Yeah, and aside from all the bad takes, I think it was an entertaining episode. At the
yes. Yeah.
Okay, so we should get. So you'll keep track of the timer.
Okay, I can do that.
And Brian, you're ready to go?
I mean, more or less.
Okay. So
you just a quick question. You guys are going to record all this and then you'll send me.
Yeah, I'll send you the audio file.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's already recorded. Like, actually, we're not recording. Like, hopefully Google's doing their job in recording this. They always do. There was one time, like a couple years ago, where we recorded something that it messed up, but people in the chat room were telling us the whole time that it sounded weird. So we should have just not been cocky and listened to them. But right now it seems like everyone can hear fine, so it'll be good.
Cool.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, Yes! Welcome everybody to another summer series episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the best fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys on Eric Karlsson in their keeper pools. I am your host, Elon Dubrovsky. With me, of course, is the fantasy hockey robot, Brian Com.
Hello, Elon. Hi, everybody. So nice of you to join us in the summer. Almost. Elon, we've got such a fun episode tonight, and it's because I'm not the only person here with us. There's a silent third guest in the virtual room right now.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he won't stay silent for long because that'll kind of defeat the purpose of an audio podcast. But yes, it's deja vu. We did this about 6 months ago, and here we go again. We are joined by the great Dimitri Filipovic. Dimitri Filipovic. We are joined by the great Dimitri Filipovic from the Hockey PDO cast. You guys already know him because you probably listen to his podcast, and he's here, and we're going to break down the Western Conference. Welcome to the show, Dimitri.
What's going on, guys? Let's do this. Fantasy hockey in the summer. This is for all the real degenerates out there.
Yeah, I mean, the real serious fantasy hockey players, it's a 24/7, 365 activity. You got to be on top of it. And I'm really excited for this episode because, like I said, we did this. We talked in September and we went through every single team in the NHL. We went through the Western Conference on our show, Eastern Conference on your show. And we all just went back and listened to those episodes. And now we're going to talk about what we got right and what we got wrong. And I got to tell you, some things were pretty spot on and some things were way, way off. And I think it's going to be really fun to make fun of each other about what takes we messed up on.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Let's get into it. Should we do 4 minutes again per team and go through it that way?
Yeah, and maybe this time we'll actually be successful at sticking with it. So sure, let's start with the Anaheim Ducks. And I was listening back, and the first thing I noticed from the listen back is that I was doing a lot of bringing up preseason line combinations, which seemed like at the time an interesting to talk about. And I was like, wow, Troy Terry is playing on the top line with Raquel and Getzlaf. I thought that Andre Kasha would be a good sleeper, but maybe it should be Troy Terry since he's on the top line. And so one lesson that I think we're going to get going through all of this is maybe I shouldn't have been paying too much attention to those line combos. So I think it'll be a good lesson for next preseason because a lot of these things didn't turn out, and Troy Terry didn't end up playing on the top line. He got shots here and there, ended up with like 13 points in 33 games. He didn't play most of the season in the league. But now going into next season, Anaheim is not super deep. So maybe Troy Terry can make an impact. Maybe we were just a year early.
Well, it's interesting. I think that's kind of like you went with the glass half empty approach in terms of how we got that Troy Terry call wrong. I'm going to go glass half full. I think I was actually too dismissive of Troy Terry. I feel like you guys kept bringing him up, and I was like, I don't know. I can't really see Troy Terry making an impact, but he was dominant in the AHL last year, and obviously it didn't necessarily translate into NHL success for the Ducks. So if anyone was stashing him on their team, they probably wouldn't have gotten anything from it. But just in terms of looking ahead and trying to project for next year and what to look forward to, I think Troy Terry is going to be good.
Yeah, okay, I like it. I think he's a good pick. And Dimitri, I'm so excited to right away get the sirens.
Yeah, we're going to get it out of the way. Yeah.
Oh, man.
The hot take. Troy Terry's actually good. There we go.
And the funny thing is, or Brian, I guess you probably have stuff to say about Troy Terry as well. I forgot that you're here too.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah. 5 minutes without my voice and you forget I exist. Troy Terry, was actually really unproductive at the NHL level, right? Like he was just not ready. He had the lowest shot rates of any Anaheim forward who played at least 300 minutes, the lowest expected goals rates amongst the same group. So yeah, I'm still trying to look for bright spots though. And just maybe he was a year early, like Dimitri said. He was a point per game player in San Diego in the AHL. And now we just learned today that Dallas Eakins is Anaheim's new coach. So his AHL coach moves to the NHL and hopefully they can work well together. Another player's name who I'm just going to throw out there now, maybe this is like 2 months early, Sam Carrick was also a point per game player with the Gulls with Dallas Eakins. He's 27 years old now though, so he's in a very different place in his development curve. But if there was ever a time for him to rise above a journeyman, maybe he gets a look this year. That's too deep a cut though for this review. That's the 2 month preview episode.
I feel like when you were saying Sam, I thought you were going to say Sam Steele, and that would be a reasonable name to say for Anaheim. I don't know why you're saying Sam Carrick.
I don't know either. It's just I was looking, part of me was like, okay, well, Troy Terry did well in the AHL. Who else in San Diego did well? And so either that could be a point against Terry, that like an NHL journeyman who hasn't cracked a lineup did essentially the same thing as Terry and probably won't be any better in the NHL for it. But I'm going to say no. I'm going to say Terry still has, I don't know why. I'm showing a side of the coin that doesn't even need to be shown.
But there was just a stink in Anaheim last year, right? Even Rickard Rakell, who had been one of the more consistent players in the league and getting better steadily each season for 3 or 4 years there, had his worst season. And so I just think hopefully next year there's going to be a bit of a clean slate with a new coach. They're going to get rid of Corey Perry. They're hopefully going to just kind of fully embrace this youth movement, and it might not result in wins for the Anaheim Ducks, but for fantasy players, there might be some kind of hidden gems in terms of younger players.
Yeah, I agree. And also keep in mind, Ondrej Kase, who I mentioned at the top, he got injured and he was supposed to be a big part of this team, and he was doing really well when he did play. He played only 30 games and he got 20 points. He was looking really good. So maybe a full season with Ondrej Kase will help the team and also be great. I think Ondrej Kase could be a really nice sleeper for this year, just like we said he was last year. I think we were right. He just, the season got cut short for injury. I'm assuming we're above our 4 minutes. So shall we go to the
We're at 3:50 right now. So let's do it. Let's go to the next team.
Boom. Okay, we'll keep this up the whole time. We'll be done this in an hour, basically. An hour or
That's
two
optimistic.
or
3.
Yeah.
Okay, that math does not.
Sorry, Brian. Brian, you're cutting into our Coyotes time, and we've got a lot to talk about here. So in that episode, back in September, we were really excited, or I was anyways, about Richard Panik playing with Keller and Stepan. And Dimitri was kind of making fun, like, oh, I didn't expect that we were going to be talking about Richard Panik. But basically we all agreed, like, hey, if he's playing with Clayton Keller, obviously he's going to be good because Clayton Keller is going to be an offensive monster. That's a quote that Dimitri said on the show. And Elon and Brian, both of us agreed. We both said like 75 points. Keller ended up with only 47 points on the year. So like, what happened there? What did we get wrong? And do we think Clayton Keller still has that in him?
No, I think you were listening to a wrong track. I was listening to the episode where we called Brad Richardson and Vinny Hinestroza being their 2 leading scorers and absolutely carrying the Arizona Coyotes to a near playoff spot.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that.
My God, I mean, that was such a mess, and it was such a fantasy wasteland there. Like, I feel like for season-long players last year, was there a single guy other than Darcy Kemper, who I'm sure we'll talk about because I remember we focused on Ranta a bit too. Like in terms of the skaters, there was no one to really glean any fantasy value from last year, at least in terms of like consistent, like month-over-month stretch, maybe for spot starts here or there.
Yeah, this remains a big question for Arizona, right? If you consider, like, look at their superficial numbers, you see that their shots on goal counts and their shot attempts are reasonably middle of the pack. But if you look at their expected goals and try and, gauge the actual danger level of these pucks they're throwing towards the net in a reasonably average way, dead last in the league in the level of threat of those shots. So Arizona, and you wonder, like, it worked for them reasonably well. They got within, a stone's throw of a playoff spot. And so I would really hope that someone like Clayton Keller has the chance to really shred his stuff, and Alex Galchenyuk for that matter too. But I think that's why we ended up being wrong, was one, because they were very happy with perimeter shooting last season, and the others that they were really a defense first team.
Yeah, then also next on the show, we talked about a potential offensive threat in Dylan Strome, and we both talked about how, maybe this guy has upside. Brian actually suggested, Brian, this is a feather in your cap. You said maybe he's not going to do well on Arizona, but you could see him getting a new lease on life with a new team one day. Well, he got 6 points in 20 games with the Coyotes. Then he got traded to Chicago, 51 points in 58 games. So I guess we'll bring him up when we get to the Blackhawks. But yeah, I bet you Arizona would be happy to have, though actually Nick Schmaltz was doing really well. So it'll be fun to see what he could do. If, again, another player just like Kasha, like he was doing well and they got injured. So what can you really say? And I guess let's end by talking about the goaltending here, because we had a big long discussion about Antti Ranta and if he's going to be this like fantasy darling. Everyone was so excited about him because he did so well the previous year. Unfortunately, he got injured. So there's injury talk here at the top. But then Darcy Kemper just came in and was so amazing. So now it's like, what's the big? I don't think we got anything right or wrong here. But I think the big question is, Dimitri, what do you think for next year? Is it Ranta's net, or now does Darcy Kemper have an equal shot? It's just a matter of who plays better in training camp.
I mean, I don't know. I don't see how you could fully trust Ranta. Like, I think when he's going to be out there, I think he's going to be productive for you. But it's similar to what we were talking about last year. We've never seen him do it for a full season. I don't think he's ever played 50 games at the NHL level and in a single season. So how can you go at this point of his career expecting that he's going to give you that? And if you're the Coyotes and we see all these teams that have had success going with a 1A, 1B kind of 50-50 split, for them, they're probably perfectly happy with going, at least giving Darcy Kemper 35-40 starts next year, assuming he can do anything close to what he did this year. So it's kind of a bit of a fantasy wasteland in that regard, but I think both guys could have value because it is a very defensively stingy team.
Yeah, you look at their better defensive performance, and like they were really giving up a lot of high-level danger shots 3 seasons ago, and then they stepped it up 2 seasons ago to decrease that. And last season was their best year in recent memory, thanks to a full year of Nicholas Hjalmarsson, another year older from Jacob Chychrun, and then Ilya Lyubushkin. If I'm pronouncing that at all right. Looks like he did some of the lifting too. So I like whoever's playing goalie for Arizona. Elon, that's as much of an endorsement of Kemper you're going to get from me.
Well, okay. I would say maybe they're going to end up being like a New York Islanders. Like that's best case scenario potentially. Like if you would have drafted both Greiss and Leonard last season for fantasy, you would have been really happy. And so maybe it could be something like that over in Arizona. I'm more excited this year about looking at potential tandems that you could get late in a draft, and then maybe someone gets injured and you end up having a starter, or maybe you have a good tandem, or just maybe someone earns the job and then you can just drop the other guy. But okay, is that our Arizona time?
Yep.
Okay, let's go to the Calgary Flames. We spent a lot of time at the start of the last episode when we talked about them, hyping up Elias Lindholm because he was playing on the top line in a game in China. Calgary had just finished that game in China, I think against Anaheim, right? Was it? Anyway.
No, it was the Bruins because you were all in on Jake DeBrusk because he had 2 goals in that game.
Oh, right. Yes, I was very excited about this one game. Yeah. But anyways, Brian was throwing cold water all over Lindholm, saying we've been waiting for him to break out forever, and he never has. And this is like a story we've told like time and time again. This is like the history of keeping Karlsson at this point is just talking about Elias Lindholm because he had this great season, 78 points overall, but only 9 in his final 19, really stunk it up at the end and didn't do that much in the playoffs. So now I guess going into next year, we have the same question. Like this time, though, at least there's not the question of whether it's going to be Lindholm or James Neal playing on the top line because Dimitri, you were super high on James Neal.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, can we scrub that from the internet?
Yeah, he ended up with 19 points in 63 games. You expected like 25, 30 goals. Yeah. So next year, what do you think about Elias Lindholm? Let's not even talk about James Neal. He might get bought out or traded or something. But do you think Lindholm's going to be able to be like the superstar guy he was for the first 3 quarters of the year? Or do you think it's more like the last quarter or maybe something in between?
I think you got to temper your expectations a little bit because obviously during that hot start of his, a lot of it was shooting percentage driven. And throughout his career early on for the Hurricanes, there was something weird going on where he was such a below average shooter and everyone on that team was for Carolina that I don't think it was necessarily an indictment of his own individual skill. I think he's obviously better than he showed. And last year he was scorching hot. And I don't think the truth probably is somewhere in the middle there. But if he's going to play with Johnny Gaudreau all season, he's going to get glorious scoring chances every night out and he's going to convert them more often than not. And so I think it's a reasonable expectation to expect something around 25 to 30 goals with hovering around 70 points if he's going to play riding shotgun with Gaudreau and Monahan. It's one of the cushiest gigs in the league, really.
I'm in about the same spot. I think I'd still land at 70 points and maybe give him about 20, 25 goals instead of 25, 30.
Right.
But one reason that he's still going to get 70 is because his power play time, right? He had 26 power play points last year compared to 9 the year before, even though the year before he was like on the top unit for a bunch of it too. So great for Elias Lindholm to finally entrench himself on one of the more dangerous top units in the league. And he also, by the way, made some use of his shorthanded time, 4 points on the penalty kill as well. He spends a lot of time there. He gets a 46% share of Calgary's penalty kill minutes. So if he can repeat that, that would be pretty great. He actually had 5 shorthanded points a couple seasons earlier. So I don't know yet if this is a repeatable skill from Elias Lindholm or if this is just a couple weird quirks.
I mean, yeah, it happens, right? A player who plays a lot shorthanded has a better chance of getting shorthanded points. Like Brad Marchand does it every single year, right? I think we still have some Calgary time on that.
Yeah, we got a minute. Yep.
All right, great. So on that episode, we talked about the defense. I kind of want to scrub this as well. Not that we really got anything too wrong, because we were talking about how TJ Brody was still on the top power play, and we were like sort of tearing our hair out, being like, ugh, why is Brody always on the top power play? And we all said we're not really into him, so we were right about that. But none of us actually went out and predicted this monster Mark Giordano season, right? Like none of us said, I think this guy's going to get 70 plus points. He ended up with 74 in 78 games. I'm really interested in him for next year, especially your multi-category leagues with your hits and your blocks. Like Giordano just does it all now.
So my question is, who did we think? Like we all agreed that Brody like shouldn't be on the top power play. Like what was the question?
I think we all implicitly assumed it was going to be Giordano, just none of us actually went out and said he's going to be amazing.
Right.
Yeah, I was kind of worried just because of the age and he has a littered injury history, but he had an amazing season. He's going to win the Norris, and I think this Flames team is going to have a high octane offense again next year. So I could easily see him walking into another monster offensive season.
Alex in the chat is asking, is Hanifin going to be fantasy relevant ever? I don't know. It doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, also, I just don't think he's going to ever play enough really to be that dominant offensively, right?
The weird part, by the way, like Dimitri, you mentioned Giordano's injury history. The very strange part is that like he's been a near iron, like he had that reputation and deservedly so because he missed 20 games for 3 out of 4 seasons. And the season he didn't miss any games was the lockout shortened one. Going into this season, he'd missed 1 game in the last 3 years. And this season he only missed 4. So I wonder if somehow he's shaking that reputation. Like can a 32-year-old player shake the reputation of being a Band-Aid boy.
I don't know. I mean, Mark Giordano's turning 36 in October.
Yeah.
So I just don't see it. I mean, I hopefully he plays 82 games. I love the player and I want to see him have that success, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, so maybe he gets dropped down a round in fantasy drafts because you're worried about injuries, but I still like him just because that, like you said about Elias Lindholm, if you're playing with Gaudreau, like, you know, on the top power play and Monahan, like, it's going to be a great opportunity to keep getting points. Okay, we got to move on to Chicago. Here's another whiff because we were excited about Brandon Saad playing with Patrick Kane in the preseason, and Dimitri was thinking he expects Saad to bounce back over. At the season before, Saad had a terrible year. He had like 30-something points, and we all were saying, or at least I don't know if I was saying, but Brian and Dimitri were definitely saying that they thought that Brandon Saad is a good buy low candidate. We're hoping for more power play points. We're hoping for more even strength points. He was playing with Patrick Kane. Brian actually said, you won't be able to draft Brandon Saad as low next year as you will be able to this year. I don't know if that's the case, but it actually wasn't that bad, right? He had 47 points. So it's not as if it was a disaster season, but not this like huge, 55+ point bounce back.
Yeah, and the thing was, I believe at one point he was getting like healthy scratch at some point in mid-season, so he bounced back a little bit from that. And I think he played predominantly with Taves as opposed to Kane. And Taves himself had an awesome offensive season, but clearly isn't the type of guy who can sort of carry his line mates from that regards as much as Kane can, at least. So I don't know. I love Brandon Saad as a player. I love watching him play. It seems like every time he's out there, he's creating chances or doing something productive on the ice. But it's been long enough in fantasy now that this just might be the new norm for him.
Yeah, really sad season for Brandon Saad. This is a big whoops on my part. Him playing on the top line lasted for like 4 games, and then he played a bunch of the season with Jonathan Taves. And then he finished the season playing with like Dylan Sikora and Artem Anisimov, which is not a place to put up production. So yeah, he spent the better half of the final part of the season in the bottom 6. And also for Saad, it wasn't just his 5-on-5 time that didn't go right. His power play time peaked at like the 15-20 game mark of the season. And you know what? He didn't deserve any better than he got. I can't blame the coaching staff for not wanting him there. And like Dimitri, you alluded to, there were these healthy scratch situations. Like there was a lot of ink spilled in Chicago this year about Brandon Saad not being motivated or not fitting the mold of what they wanted a Chicago player to be like. And I don't know if he can come back from that next year, right? He's got the same coach who didn't trust him with top 6 minutes coming back again. That coach had some success. Like looking at how the Blackhawks actually challenged for a playoff spot. So I think you can get Brandon Saad lower this year than you could last year, but you shouldn't want him.
Yeah, I think he's still a guy that's going to be in free agency, and maybe you'll look at him if he gets a chance in the top 6, but he's not someone to rush for.
Here's what I'll say. I mean, I think we both, all of us expect the Blackhawks next year will probably be just as bad defensively as they were this year. I mean, I don't think Ole Mata bringing him in is going to make all the difference for them. And so I think they're going to get into a lot of those back and forth shootout 7-6 type of affairs they did last year. And hopefully guys like Saad can get more of that love. I mean, it's wild that guys like Brendan Perlini and stuff were having these monster scoring outbursts in those games. And Saad just unfortunately wasn't one of them.
Yeah, regarding the defense, right? We still have Corey Crawford, who is healthy, I guess, but like who knows? Like hard at this point to expect him to play a full season. It's Cam Ward's not still there, right? I hope not, but maybe like Colin Delia will be a good guy to look at for next year. Maybe the next Jordan Binnington, or maybe I'm going too far here, but like I think Delia is someone that should be on your radar. Just because we'll see what the news is on Crawford in training camp, but I think he'll be someone to watch for sure. By the way, on the podcast, I'll just mention in that episode I was saying that I think DeBrincat will be better than Saad, and then Dimitri, you like shot me down. I was like, Elon, that's not even a hot take. Come on. So I can't take credit for that.
Wait. Oh, so does that mean that I was agreeing with you that DeBrincat was gonna be better? Or?
Yeah, you were like saying, of course, DeBrincat will be better.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Oh, and he lived up to the hype. He had a monster season. I don't know about Delia, just because maybe if you're playing in one of those leagues where like you get credit for actual raw total volume of saves, maybe I think he's gonna be facing a lot of work as long as he's in there. But I think that team is so bad defensively; they're easily a bottom 3 team in that regard. That I just can't see the actual, especially like the counting goals against stats and stuff like that being good enough to roster all year.
Yeah, I see it though. He was okay last year. 908 save percentage. Yeah. Not world beating, but pretty
functional.
Good. Yeah. We didn't mention Gustafsson. Unfortunately, we had a big debate about Duncan Keith and whether he could bounce back. And Brian was really pushing for Keith greater than 45 points. He wasn't too far off. Like Dimitri, you said like closer to 35, 40, and you were right. He ended up with 40 points. So not terrible. Not as high, the high heights that Brian was expecting, but definitely not the high heights of Eric Gustafsson, who hit 60 points. I don't think we even mentioned his name.
Yeah, no, he was a monster. Anyone that probably either got him super late in drafts or even in some leagues maybe that weren't paying attention on waivers must have been loving life last year.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I'm over Duncan Keith. Like, I still think there's room for, like, I'm not going to say Duncan Keith is going to be the guy. Well, actually, there's probably not room. We talked about this on our last episode with Gustafsson, and then Yoki Haryu's there, as another option. Yep. Should the Blackhawks want to try someone other than Gustafsson, but you've got to think Keith is too far down the depth chart to have a chance at making an impact on the power play.
Yeah. Plus, they also have some people in. Oh, sorry. What's that guy's name again? The guy who they drafted a couple years ago?
They have Boquist, but they might even draft Byram third overall potentially. So yeah. That's more down the road. Okay, let's do the next team.
Okay, so next we've got the Colorado Avalanche, and we spent the start of the podcast trying to predict who's like the fourth best forward to own. We were all saying, like, of course, McKinnon, Ranson, and Landeskog can be great. They were saying, who else would you want as a forward on Colorado? Dimitri, you ended up saying Tyson Jost. There's also some talking of Kamenev. Could any of you guess who ended up being the fourth best Avalanche?
Soderberg, right?
Yeah. Soderberg. 49 points. So I don't even know if he was really worth drafting. Probably the correct answer was just like, don't worry about it. I think we pretty much said that. So I think we pretty much nailed the forwards on Colorado. That was probably the easiest team to predict, though. It's that top line and then or completely bust.
Great team to have a streamer from, though, right? Like, you had guys like Kerfoot and Comfort occasionally producing, and a couple injuries on the top line helped give those guys some value every so often. But I still think the case remains that you don't want anybody beyond the top three forwards in Colorado. Kamenev, who I remember being like, oh yeah, like he seemed like a really great hockey hipster pick going into last season, never really got a shot. He averaged less than 10 minutes over the 23 games he played. Then he had season-ending surgery on his shoulder. But like, that's not even an excuse, because his time on ice and line mate deployment was never really trending up. So you have to think the Avalanche want to find some secondary scoring, though, and they'll look within their lineup. And I hope he gets another look in training camp. So he's still on my radar going into the season. But, once you've had one shot to impress me as a no-name, it's not as cool to pick you again.
Yeah, when I think we saw last year towards the end of the year, Jared Bednar realized that he needed secondary scoring, and so he really tried to split up those three guys, and he was playing Kerfoot and I think Derek Brassard for a while with McKinnon quite a bit. So there's certainly whoever's going to be playing with McKinnon is going to have fantasy value, and I think it might just be more of a sort of streamer type of deal, or if you play DFS as opposed to targeting someone in the draft. But I don't know. Tyson Jost at this point hasn't shown it at the NHL level. It might just never happen. There's going to have to be someone else that steps up, right? Like, I think we all like this Colorado team. They're so fun to watch. They play such a fun, exciting pace. Maybe it'll be someone they draft this year at fourth overall. We'll see who that is. But there's got to be someone that steps up, because this team is too good to be just relying on three guys.
And we could see some offseason movement, right? They have projected $37 million looking at cap friendly in cap space. And believe it or not, they have only 6 forwards under contract. They've got a couple RFAs, a couple UFAs, but there's a lot of blank spaces in their depth chart behind McKinnon, Landeskog, Soderberg, and then Matt Calvert, Matt Nieto, and Tyson Jost is still on his ELC. So we'll see. Like, this is a team that could look really different come September.
Wow. And so you're saying they have all this money, plus they have 2 first-round picks. They can maybe make a trade for someone. So yeah, Colorado could really make a splash this summer. They could be an interesting team to watch. Do we have any time left to talk about the goalies?
Yeah, we got a minute.
Okay, yeah. So maybe I should have had the timer. So I don't know.
Why don't you have the timer?
Dimitri, you got to give me the 1 minute warning.
I like this game where Elon's just guessing how much time we got.
Okay, so we discussed Varlamov versus Grubauer, and I think I was a bit off because I was saying I think Varlamov's underrated. Like, everyone was sort of saying Grubauer, and I was saying, well, maybe Varlamov will be good. And at first, I was kind of right. Like, Varlamov did actually get the majority of the starts on the season. He played 49 games. Grubauer only played 37, but by the end of the season, Grubauer clearly established himself. Now Varley's going to be gone as a free agent. Colorado signed Pavel Francouz, so I think he's going to probably be the backup next year. And I guess the big question now is how good is Philip Grubauer? He was so great at the end of the season. He was so great in the playoffs. Now he is the undisputed number 1 goalie on this team. You don't have to worry about him splitting starts. I feel like he could be one of the top goalies to own in fantasy.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, there's going to be a really good team. They're going to win a lot of games, and I think maybe he won't be as good as he was when he was absolutely on fire down the stretch, but he's had a long enough track record now in the NHL where I believe at least he'll be above league average and on a great team that's going to have a lot of value.
Yeah, his offense is going to do a lot of the work for him. So I think the wins will be there. The question is, can the defense help up and help him? Can the defense step up and help him out? You've got Eric Johnson, great, Tyson Barrie, and then it sort of falls off defensive wise. There's no real guys that you can count on to take on the heavy minutes. So you've got some offensive flair for sure, but offense is not going to be Colorado's problem next year. So
it won't matter when Cale Makar and Sam Girard just have the puck in the offensive zone for 90 seconds at a time.
Yeah, Makar and Girard could end up being
that's the Erik Karlsson defense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Brian, hot take, and then we'll just move on. I want to give you guys time to respond, but I think I'd rather have Grubauer than Jordan Binnington in fantasy next year. Just dropping the bomb.
That's not a hot take. I buy that.
I'll bet you that Binnington will be drafted higher next year.
Yeah, he will for sure. Oh, he's on. Yeah, okay. Next team.
So another one of the classic Dimitri telling me my take isn't hot, so I won't be able to brag about it next year when we do this. Okay, Dallas. This will be a short one. This is where we can make up some of the time that we've lost. So we talked a bit about Nichushkin and Spezza and how it looked like they were going to be playing with Radulov on the second line. And so we're like, oh, maybe these guys will be able to bounce back. Nichushkin, remember, had been out of the NHL, and he was like coming back, and we had some hype about him. We also we thought these could be value guys to grab. The end of the year, Nichushkin 10 points in 57 games, Spezza 27 points in 76 games. So just two big nobodies, and we're pretty much the same situation again this year. I feel like in Dallas, you've got your big three, and then maybe they'll re-sign Zuccarello or get somebody. But aside from that, there's like really kind of a wasteland for forwards.
I'm genuinely impressed. It's one of those things where like I was disappointed in Nichushkin, and then when a guy goes that many games without a single goal or penalty minute, I'm just like, okay, this is like, now I just have to marvel at the excellence of this guy, just absolutely submarining any love he was getting from us. Here's the name I'll give you, Roope Hintz. I'm all in. He was so good down the stretch, and he was so good in the playoffs. And I think they don't want to play Sagan, Ben, and Radulov together. If they re-sign Zuccarello, that's great. Then they can really go with that balanced top six approach. But whatever they do, I bet you Roope Hintz is so good defensively and has enough talent offensively that his coaches are going to love him. Jim Montgomery is going to give him as many minutes as he can handle. And I think that's going to lead to fantasy success.
Roope Hintz, the only thing that makes me a little nervous is that we've seen this movie in Dallas before with Valeri Nichushkin, right? We saw a really exciting upstart come almost out of nowhere and not just put up the points, but have some highlight reel moments in there only to disappear. Now, I'm not going to penalize Hintz just because he's wearing the same jersey as Nichushkin was. Like, I also believe in Roope Hintz, but I just have that image in the back of my mind. Jason Spezza, by the way, what a bummer of a season, Elon. You sort of, Elon, you just gave him a passing mention. Remember, like in the first 13 games, it felt really good to have called Jason Spezza. He had 10 points in that early stretch, and it looks kind of sustainable. But then he had just 17 points in his next 63. And I remember we were counting on Jim Montgomery, being the new coach, being more open to giving Spezza a bigger, better role than he had with Lindy Ruff and Ken Hitchcock. But he had the same 13 minutes a game and just a titch more power play time, which he didn't even make the most of. So it's hard to imagine Jason Spezza. Like, I want to believe there's still a situation somewhere. He's a UFA now that he can be like a veteran middle six center and have a more relevant season than he did last year. But I don't know if that's just, having watched him in Ottawa for so long and just rooting for the guy.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he'll be a decent NHLer, maybe, but definitely forget about him for fantasy. And as far as Roope Hintz goes, yeah, I'm with you, Dimitri. Like, I'm happy to go for him, but I don't know if I'd reach too far for him, just because we've also seen, like Blake Como, Brett Ritchie, like Matthias Janmark, like all these people look like they're going to be on the top line, and like what a sweet spot for them, and then they never last. But maybe Roope Hintz will be the one who changes the trend.
I think Hintz is different in that, like, the guys you mentioned were sort of journeymen, right? Who never really, who had chances already. This is Roope Hintz's first look in the NHL and looked that good. Sorry, Dimitri, you were going to say?
No, I think I agree. That's exactly what I was going to say. I think the offensive upside's there. I wouldn't reach too much for him just because I don't think he's necessarily this kind of like prolific game-changing talent that's going to just tear up the score sheet and carry the offense himself. But I just think he's such a good, well-rounded player that at worst, he's not going to get bumped below like the second line because Jim Montgomery is going to want to have him out there. And if they split the lines up and that means playing with Radulov or Zuccarello or whoever, there's plenty of fantasy goodness to go around. Did we talk all about Heiskanen in that last preview?
Not that I recall. Do you want to say anything about him now?
Well, I think everyone, obviously, he came in with a lot of hype. There was that rumor that they turned down an Erik Karlsson trade because they didn't want to include Heiskanen in the deal. And I was skeptical because with young NHL defensemen, you never know how long it's going to take for them to adapt and really assert themselves. But just watching him, especially in the postseason, I mean, he is so freaking good. And Jim Montgomery was so creative with getting him and Klingberg out there for as many 5-on-5 offensive draws as they could together. And so, man, I think I like the Stars from a fantasy perspective because you know exactly who you need from that team and what you're going to get from them, and you don't really have to worry about any of the other kind of tertiary and secondary stuff. But those top guys are going to be so good that people are going to be tuning in and drafting them.
Yeah, I'm in on Heiskanen. I feel like there's a very good analogy to be made with Colorado. They have Barry and then Cal McCarr coming up, and then like Dallas has Klingberg and Heiskanen. And like you think Klingberg and Barry are going to hold their top power play spots, but they're these really good young guys that could push them for that spot, and make them maybe a little bit more scary to draft. But it'll be fun to watch and see. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Edmonton Oilers. I guess everyone who can remember what happened last offseason probably remembers what we discussed. And it was this whole like McDavid, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Ty Ratty top line that had ended the previous season. They were really good, and it was looking like they were going to play together in the preseason. We were all excited about, like, also Connor McDavid had a quote saying to reporters that he just wanted some consistent line mates. And so I was like, oh yeah, it's finally going to happen. And, part right, like I said, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins will get 70 points. He ended up getting 69. I'll count that as a win. But Ty Ratty ended up being a nobody. Dimitri was saying he wishes Puljujarvi could be on the top line. We talked about Puljujarvi and Lucic and Yamamoto. In the end, like, kind of everyone sucked. And now we go into next season. And once again, like, who else? Dimitri, like, who would be your favorite Oiler to own? Or who do you think is going to come fourth in Oiler forwards scoring after the big top three?
Well, we got it wrong, but like Alex Chasson, for example, he had like 20 goals in a short period of time. They were just playing and just, especially on the power play, just basically teeing off on all the attention McDavid was drawing. So that's why people are going to be interested and people are going to be speculating. We'll see. I mean, I think towards the end of the year, there was a lot of like Zach Cassian in there. I forget if he was playing with McDavid or Draisaitl a bit more, but he was also chipping in offensively, unlike we'd really seen from him in years. So I don't know who it's going to be. We'll still see in free agency with Ken Holland there. I imagine they're going to try to do something new and shake things up and bring someone in. I don't think it's going to be a big name, but they could use some fresh blood, because I don't think any of these guys that they have in there right now, especially certainly not the Lucic types, are going to be good enough to capitalize on that cushy scoring spot. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, Cassian got to play with both McDavid and Draisaitl.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, which is why he was as good as he was. And you put in, like, it doesn't even matter, right? You put your 12th forward on that line, and they're going to get some production. And if you're going to combine McDavid and Draisaitl on the same line, I feel like that should essentially be your strategy. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, as we talked about before last season, is great. Is the third best forward on the team, but having him there is not a huge gain necessarily, because anyone can do it. Zach Cassian can do it. I still want to think that the answer is in Yamamoto or Puljujarvi, but I also know that it might, like, it all. Here we are again going into a new season where we just wonder if Edmonton has learned from any of their past mistakes, if their new coach is going to really understand exactly how to take care of business and how to find the right lineup configuration, what their management is going to do, if we can trust them to actually put out two solid lines of production. I'm still not there yet. So, like, I would like to believe that they'll give the right chance to the right young players, or maybe make a good signing in the offseason. But yeah, my faith, I need to see something now. Like, I can't have blind faith that they're going to do the right thing with any guy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's amazing that I agree with you completely. Like, literally anyone, you could put them there and it'd succeed, which makes it so amazing that Milan Lucic is apparently the one person who could not absolutely succeed no matter what. So it just speaks to how much he's fallen off. But I don't know. And I guess a name to watch for next season is I like Tyler Benson. I don't know if he's going to necessarily come up to the Oilers or how they're going to deploy him, but he was one of the better young players in the AHL this season. So we'll see if that translates. They clearly have openings and clearly need someone who can create their own offense beyond just Draisaitl and McDavid.
Yeah, if anyone's looking to Bakersfield to try and find the next guy, Cooper Marady, also there, 64 points in 58 games. Joseph Gambardella, but he's a center. So is Marady, but who knows where move anyone to the wing, right?
Yeah. But are you guys like totally giving up now on Yamamoto and Puljujarvi? They're still young. Like, and Brian, you were saying like, oh, you don't trust the Oilers like management to like play them properly, but like maybe they're just not as good, or maybe they are. Like, what's your take? Are we still holding out any hope for either of these guys, or are we done with them?
I am. I still hope it's going to work, but it has to work in clearly it hasn't been the right environment for them. They weren't. I don't think the development boat has been missed entirely on either one. You've got Yamamoto, who's still 20, and you've got Puljujarvi, who's still even younger than that. He's he's older. He's 21. So between them, there's still an effort. There's still room to navigate any errors that have been made and right some wrongs, but we're running out of road here.
Well, I'm not giving up on Puljujarvi's talent, but I don't know if it's going to happen in an Oilers uniform. I think he's kind of made it clear that he wants a fresh start and he wants to go somewhere else. And maybe a new coach and a new GM is going to help convince him to give Edmonton another shot. But I don't know. At this point, it's just not happening for him with Oilers.
Yeah, and Yamamoto, I guess he hasn't really been given a shot yet. So we'll see what Yamamoto does this year. Maybe Puljujarvi is looking at Dylan Strome as a role model, and he's waiting for something similar to happen for him. Okay, LA Kings. So I started the LA Kings section at the start of the season talking about this beautiful Kovalchuk goal in the preseason. I was like, did you guys see that Kovalchuk goal? And then that didn't work out. So I'll just say right away, Kovalchuk, I was high on him, and he let me down. 34 points in 64 games. I'm assuming we're like done with him. He was still on the top power play for a lot of the season. Kopitar, Brown, Carter, Kovalchuk, Doughty. We were expecting that to be the power play, and we thought it was going to be a lethal. I think, Dimitri, you said a lethal-looking top power play.
Oh, God.
So it really didn't work out in LA. And so Kovalchuk was the big whiff. And going into next year, are we expecting like kind of more of the same, or do you see any reason for optimism for any of these guys who had down years like Carter, Kopitar? Like everyone disappointed us.
I think Kopitar is still a great player, and I think he's going to get his. I don't know what his fantasy ceiling is, but I would have no issues with drafting him. I think this team was just such an abomination last year. I hated watching them. They played so slow, so many overpriced, aging veterans. The one guy that I did like towards the end, especially after the trade, and then he came up and I had a brief like 10-game cameo or so, was Carl Grundstrom. And I forget how many goals he scored or whatever, but I felt like he had his moments, and it just stuck out so much just watching him because it was like all these old overpriced guys and then this like young guy who was able to generate stuff and score goals. And I was like, all right, I kind of finally like see a shining light here. So hopefully we'll get a bit more Carl Grundstrom in the top six, whether it's with Kopitar or whether it's Adrian Kempe and Tyler Toffoli or whoever else.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Go ahead, Brian.
Grundstrom had, I'll fill in the blanks for you. Grundstrom had 5 goals and an assist for 6 points in 15 games. Of course, he started out with lower ice time and different deployment. 26 shots over those 15 games. So we can't judge him based off of this at all. I'm kind of excited. I mentioned this on our last Patron cast for Jeff Carter to try and get back at it. I haven't lost faith that he can still be a 60-point player, especially like Tyler Toffoli's still there, who is not going to be as good as I ever hoped he would. But I still think that there's enough there for there to be a productive four productive forwards between Kopitar, Brown, Carter, and Toffoli. I think they'll all see bounce backs commensurate to what we would have expected from them last year. Wow. I don't know what Kovalchuk offers though. Like it's hard to imagine. Like, are we going to see another Ilya Kovalchuk retirement if LA cannot move his contract in time for the start of the year?
I love how, Brian, you're just like, Jeff Carter will be totally fine. Kovalchuk, though, forget about him. Also, I feel like, is this a rerun?
Well, no, Kovalchuk, there was like, it wasn't working in LA, right? Like there was a lot of being disgruntled and anger towards the organization by the end of the season.
Was it working for Jeff Carter towards the end of the season? All right. Anyway, so we'll see. Like, I feel like we're getting a bit of a rerun of the Duncan Keith talk all of a sudden now with all these old guys that Brian loves. We also talked about the goaltending because Jonathan Quick had such a great year the previous season, and Brian and I had been debating before we got to Dimitri, who we asked to break the tie because I was saying I thought he could be good. Brian said he doesn't think so, and Brian though still said he thought Quick could be like in the teens, 9 of save percentage. So we were all not even able to predict how bad he would be because he ended up with an 888 save percentage. Meanwhile, Jack Campbell in the games he played was really good. Cal Peterson for the few games he played was really good. I wonder, like, at this point, are we kind of done with Jonathan Quick? Like, are we looking at a potential Binnington situation here where one of Campbell or Peterson takes over by the time we're all said and done?
I mean, they're probably better at this point, but I don't know if this team even has any intentions of really being competitive or winning next season. So, and based on what Quick means to that franchise and how much he's being paid, I'm not sure if we're going to see that type of a situation where they just completely hand over the keys. But you're right. I mean, it's a pretty big indictment on Quick, and I know he had injuries, but when you put Campbell in there behind that same defense and Cal Peterson as well, both guys had smaller, especially Peterson had a smaller sample size, but they looked so much better than Quick that you really have to wonder how much of it was everything around them and how much it was just the goalies themselves.
If we want to try and give Quick a little bit of credit, which is not generally what I try and do, but if I did, I'd mention that Quick had probably the worst protection from the team in front of him between himself, Campbell, and Peterson, but like not nearly to the extent that what he did could be excused last season. Like, he faced the hardest workload of his career and he totally withered beneath it. You couldn't count on him for a quality start, just barely passing the 40% mark in quality starts. I expect the Kings are going to improve on last season. So I kind of have a little bit of interest in their goalie, just as like a late round steal or a spot start early on in the season. Like, I don't expect big things from them, but I expect if Jonathan Quick does get the reins again, I think he'll be better than he was last year.
Yeah, I could see him being better, but I could also see him getting bumped. So I feel like I would be not interested in Jonathan Quick unless I could get him really late, like you're saying, like last round or second last round, and then maybe also grab Jack Campbell out of free agency when he's going on a run. Okay, Minnesota Wild. We were all high on Jason Zucker. He had a really nice breakout season the year before, and we thought he could continue to be a 60-point guy. We all agreed. We were all wrong. He only had 42 points in 81 games. So that's someone we have to talk about. Do we still like Jason Zucker? Because, Minnesota wasn't scoring as many goals last year as maybe we hoped they would. So maybe they can improve next year. They have now Granlund in the picture. Like, I don't know. They have Granlund's out of the picture. They have Kevin Fiala in the picture. So yeah, I don't know. Like, any reason to be excited about Jason Zucker again?
Well, there is, because there's no way he's going to be playing in a Minnesota Wild uniform next season.
There you go.
You know what? They almost traded him to Calgary at the deadline. They almost traded him to Pittsburgh this summer already. Like, at this point, it's pretty clear he's going to go somewhere else. And I think wherever he goes, I assume that team's going to be going out of their way to acquire him, which means they really value him and they're going to put him in a position to succeed. And so I think the talent is still there. There's no reason to believe he would have completely dropped off physically at this point of his career. So I like Zucker a lot. This Minnesota team is one of the most confusing teams to me because the talent is there. Maybe it's not as abundant as it was in years past, but just based on how they're being run by Paul Fenton and what they're doing and what trades they're potentially going to make this summer, like, who knows what this team's going to look like, but I can't imagine it's going to be very encouraging just on the trajectory they're on.
Yeah, that Minnesota is trying to trade Jason Zucker is probably like a tick like in the box for, we should still believe in him. Look, his 5-on-5 shooting percentage and his on-ice shooting percentage just cratered last season. And against our expectations, his power play role was stagnant. He had a very similar share of his team's power play minutes and did not get to do any more with them than he did in the previous season. He did about the same, but it was at even strength where he really struggled in an unsustainable way, though. So I'm still a believer that he can get 60 points, and maybe he's going to find his way into a situation that's much better than the one in Minnesota. Look at Niederreiter, right? There's a talented player, didn't look good in a Wild jersey, got traded, flew, and I think Jason Zucker is waiting for a similar moment where he can be set free.
Yeah, I mean, he's hoping for a Sebastian Aho like landing spot. I don't know if he'll get that, but maybe he could at least be like a 60-point guy. Then we talked about Matt Dumba. We were all super high on him. He was coming off that great season, and he might be a guy that people have forgotten about because he only played 32 games before getting injured. He had 22 points in that stretch, and he was looking really, really good. So Matt Dumba might be a guy that you can get later in a draft this year than you will be able to in future years. Like Brian said about, who was it before that ended up not being, Brandon Saad. But I think this one might be the case because Matt Dumba, I think, is the future. I mentioned at the time, like, don't forget about Jared Spurgeon. He's someone that people don't really talk about. He ended up with 43 points, so not so bad. What do you guys think about the defense next year? There's still Ryan Suter there, but at this point, I feel like Matt Dumba's clearly the guy you want, and I feel like now's a good chance to get him because he's not on people's minds.
Yeah, and I feel like of those 22 points, a bunch of them, especially for a defenseman, were goals, and he looked really good, and then he obviously had that injury, and it's a shame. But I think sometimes when we approach these drafts, I know certain people who maybe aren't as fully invested or all in on fantasy, they're just kind of sorting by like points from last season and whatnot, and making their picks based on that. And so Dumba's going to be suppressed on those lists just because he didn't play as many games, and so he'll probably fall down drafts and be a great value for people that haven't been paying attention and for people who have to scoop him up. So I like that call a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And Brian, by the way, I got to give you some credit. You pumped up Zach Parise as a good sleeper for going into the season, and he killed it. He had 61 points in 74 games. So you know what? Good for Zach Parise, but better for you, Brian Combe, for predicting it. Way to go.
I even a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
No, you should take all the credit. By the way, at this point in the Minnesota chapter, that's when I suggested that we should make a permanent podcast with the three of us because I thought it was going so well. So I don't know if we still feel that way at this point, but we did at that point, and I'm having a good time so far.
Yeah, me too.
Okay,
it's going okay. If you keep complimenting me the way you did about Parise, then I'll be having a great time.
Yeah. If we did this more often, we'd probably get better at like not talking over each other. Like I feel like we'd really get into our zone, maybe 10 episodes in or something in the Keeping Karlsson PDO cast conglomerate podcast. So we'll talk about that off the air. Let's go to Nashville. So Fiala. top line, bumping Arvidsson. That was the big talk in our episode. We were talking about, wow, Kevin Fiala in the preseason is playing on the top line. This is going to be huge. He had a 5-point game in the preseason. So we were like, I was slobbering all over him. I said 60 points if he could hold that spot easy. Dimitri, you said he's a great player. You actually were saying something about how he needs to slow down. Like he's so fast. He needs to sort of catch up to himself. You agree that he could be like a 60-point guy. Anyway, he stunk 32 points in 64 games in Nashville. Then he went to Minnesota and he stunk there too. 7 points in 19 games. So at this point, we're a year later. Kevin Fiala has another disappointing season under his belt. He's on a new team. Are we still into him or is it time to let go?
I'm still all in. I like the talent. I like the player. He does still need to slow down. I think he goes 110% on every play and sometimes skates himself out of position. But like we saw with Nathan MacKinnon, I don't necessarily think he's that type of talent, but he had similar issues earlier in his career where he just didn't know how to pick his spots. And hopefully that happens. But I mean, with this Predators team, it's similar to how we're going to talk about the Canadians on the Eastern Conference version. There's a lot of talent here at 5-on-5. There's no issues. But for whatever reason, the power play was just so bad, historically bad, and especially in the postseason, just watching them against that Stars team, it was really just eye-opening how bad they were. And so I don't know what they have to do from that, if they're going to completely change it up, if they need to move away from playing 2 defensemen on there and go with a more kind of progressive 4 forwards, 1 defenseman approach. But I think we're going to like all of these guys that they have much more for fantasy if they can get that power play going at least a little bit, just so it's like respectable. So some of these guys like Forsberg and Arvidsson can get some easy points to supplement the great 5-on-5 production that they have.
Yeah, the power play was a total disaster, and it's a reason to expect at least the guys who are on it to be able to up their point totals a little bit going into next year. Kevin Fiala, by the way, Dimitri, I'm with you. I still have hope for him because we never actually saw him on the top line. He saw some time with Ryan Johansson, but the other guy was Ryan Hartman. Yep. So like never really got a chance with 2 quality line mates, and that's the chance we want to see him get. I don't know. Like if we were trying to compare him to Arvidsson, and I don't know that he compares exactly. Like Fiala shoots less, but created roughly the same expected goals per 60 minutes. So that's a positive. One thing I'm still concerned with, though, like the same way, I guess we're still talking about Minnesota here, because if I'm talking about Fiala, like a weird fit there, right? So I'm still happy and like interested about Kevin Fiala, but I find it very strange that he's playing in Minnesota. It didn't seem like they knew what to do with him once he got there. It doesn't seem like they know what to do with anyone at the moment. So that would be a strike against him. I don't know. I hope Minnesota can turn this around. Like they went from being a reasonably smart team to like a what the heck team really, really quickly.
Can I drop another hot take that, Dimitri, you could tell me if it's not actually hot or not? Yeah, I would take Ryan Donato over Kevin Fiala on Minnesota next year.
I like Fiala more as a player, but in terms of fantasy, I could see that. I think Donato's like skill set kind of translates to potential fantasy goodness with the shots and the goals.
Bah. Okay. Well, at some point I'll get you and I'll get you to disagree with
me.
You
just need to say something truly outlandish, and then I'll be like, okay, you know what? I'm not supporting that.
Okay. Well,
Dimitri's just goading you into saying the most ridiculous thing possible.
Okay. Well, I wanted to next talk about the Nashville goalies if we still have time. We debated Rinne versus Saros last year. It's just going to be a rerun of that. In the end, like Rinne played 56 games, Saros played 31 games. They had similar save percentages in the end. So it's just going to be the same again next year. Now Rinne is re-signed. Like at that time that we were talking about it last year, we were talking about Rinne going to be UFA at the end of the year, but now he signed a 2-year extension. So it seems like Rinne is their goalie for the next year and Saros is the backup. And is there really anything to say about that? I don't have a hot take here, unfortunately. I'm not going to say like Saros is going to play 70% of the games because I don't believe that.
Well, I mean, listen, I think it's probably going to be a similar split to that, but I think if you told me that I'm going to get 30 to 35 games from UC Saros, which seems very plausible moving forward, like I think he's good enough and that team is good enough that that's going to be really nice value. Like I kind of like those kind of backup goalies like that. They're not the sexiest names because everyone's looking for the starters on the great teams, but you can load up on those guys, especially in deeper leagues, and just spot start them when they are playing, and they're going to give you great performances.
Right. If you're just looking for minimum starts and UC Saros is getting 1 start a week, that's great. That's gold, right? You only need 2 depth goalies if you want to just try and hope your percentages favor you in the few starts that you do get. So Saros would be a good goalie to get if that is the strategy you're employing.
Though, should we be concerned? Like Saros only had a .915 save percentage in his 31 games, so not amazing, not terrible though. So maybe it's not even worth discussing. Like it seems like he and Rinne were both average, and that's probably all Nashville needs to comfortably find themselves into the playoffs. So I guess we could move on to the San Jose Sharks now. We were debating, of course, this was like a week after the news came out that Erik Karlsson had been traded there. So we're talking about Karlsson and Burns. Like, is it good for Burns and Karlsson to be playing together? Will they both be able to get 70 plus points? Who's going to get on the power play? In the end, like, we were both great. Like, we were kind of right. Like, Dimitri.
We were great. All three of us are great. Yeah, we're great.
I meant to say that Karlsson and Burns were both great, but so were we. Yeah. But yeah, Dimitri, you were concerned about Burns if the power play is different, because at least for fantasy, you were saying how Burns like takes all those shots. And that's what makes him so valuable. Maybe now he's not going to be taking shots on the power play. In the end, like whatever, like Burns got 83 points, 82 games. He had this amazing season. Karlsson had a 70-point pace, obviously struggled through some injuries. And now going to next season, probably Karlsson won't be there. Though news is coming out that Karlsson and San Jose are working on an extension. But I feel like I've already seen like so many articles of linking Karlsson to different teams. So I feel like I almost don't want to talk about Karlsson team landing spot speculation anymore.
You're bearing the lead. You guys were giving me a lot of just giving me a hard time about all my Timo Meier love, because each year I'm talking about Timo Meier, and it finally happened.
I was going to get to that.
The faith has been rewarded.
Brian, let's stand up and give Dimitri a clap. Yeah, you were talking about Timo Meier, and then I was saying, is this a rerun? But we agreed with you, right? Like,
of course. Yeah, no, the talent is there. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, 66 points in 78 games. Do you see him doing even better than 66 points next season, or do you think that's like a good spot to have Timo Meier?
I think the sky's the limit for him. I mean, I don't know what percentage of breakdown that was at 5-on-5 versus overall and on the power play, but I know, like, especially in the playoffs, he was so dominant for them at 5-on-5, and then on the power play they weren't really playing on much with the top unit, and it was more so running it through hurdle stick. So I assume eventually he's just such a good player and such an integral part of that offense that he will make it onto that first unit power play full time, and when he does and he's around the net, there's going to be more fantasy goodness to come. So I think if anything, he's going to keep getting better. He generates a ton of shots, a ton of great looks and scoring chances, and yeah, I could talk about Timo Meier for the next 45 minutes really.
Earlier this season, we were marveling at Timo Meier putting up the point pace that he was, like a 70-point pace just about, with the power play time he was getting. And Elon, I wish I had my notes on me from it. We'll go back and get them for the almanac. But there was like a really short and weird list of players who had 10 or fewer power play points and still got to 70 points or even 60 or 65 points. So Timo Meier joins the club as one of the latest guy to do it. And I'm a total believer in him as well. Elon and Dimitri, does this qualify as a hot take? Timo Meier outscores Tomas Hertl next season?
I don't think it's a hot take at all, because I mean,
we need the sirens to go in the background for it to be considered a hot take.
We do. I mean, I feel like Hertl's shooting percentage was really, really elevated. He doesn't generate shots of the same volume as Meier does. Now, he's such a talented player that if you told me that Hertl is going to convert at a well above average shooting percentage rate moving forward next year, I'd believe that as well. But I think just something about Meier's production seems a bit more sustainable.
Okay, how about if I'm going to go all the way? Timo Meier, leading scorer in San Jose next year. That's a hot take.
Ooh, I like that.
That's Burns, maybe Karlsson, definitely Couture, Pavelski if he's there again. All of them.
I like it. You know what? I'll give you that as a hot take.
Yes.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll give you both, actually. I mean, well, the first one, I don't know how hot it is, but I'll disagree. Are we talking goals or points for Hertl versus Meier?
Everything. Points.
Okay, for points, I think Hertl will have more points than Meier, and I think Burns will have more points than maybe both of them. So, but I'm just basically copying what happened this year. So maybe that's not so innovative by me. But Brent Burns is so good. By the way, Dimitri, you were like annoyed that I didn't call out and like loud you for your Timo Meier call, but I was actually being nice and not mentioning how you said you thought Burns was going to get in the 60s for points when he ended up with 83. So I was just trying to spare you.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Listen, I was kind of skeptical how that was going to work, how they were going to split the time between Karlsson and Burns is such an overwhelming offensive force that he makes it work regardless.
Dimitri learns a valuable lesson of co-hosting a podcast with Elon. Be right about something. Be reminded about the 9 other things you got wrong.
By the way, Brian, you said low 60s for Burns. Dimitri said high 60s.
Nice.
I totally blew the whole Burns Karlsson thing in San Jose. So wherever Karlsson lands next year, everybody has permission to not trust me on what I think happens to that defensive scoring situation.
No, say the opposite. Say you learned your lessons, and now
I learned my lessons. And now you're going to
be better. Like
I'm going to be better.
Yeah, we projected for our first time last year. We made our list of projections for every player, and I guaranteed you, Brian, we're going to be better next year than we were last year. I feel like I've learned a lot of lessons about coming up with projections. Okay, St. Louis Blues. What do we got? We're almost done here. We got 4 more teams. Yep. So we were talking about how Jake Allen was injured. Oh boy, this is going to be... So we were talking about how Allen was injured, and then we were debating if maybe Ville Husso or Chad Johnson, who's the better one to draft. And Dimitri, you were really into Chad Johnson. You were saying you'll grab him.
I was.
You thought he'll steal starts from Jake Allen. And in the end, you were right that Jake Allen wasn't great. He only had a 905 save percentage. Chad Johnson only played 10 games and was absolutely terrible, below 900 save percentage. And of course, we didn't mention the name Jordan Binnington. So look what happened. But we did at least get it right that we were calling that Allen wasn't going to be the guy. So people listening and reading between the lines knew what we meant. We were saying grab the guy who's playing that's not Jake Allen. We just didn't happen to mention the right AHL goalie.
Well, and I will say, I don't know where Allen was going in drafts last year, but he was the starter for a Blues team that people thought were going to be good and were kind of a trendy preseason pick. So I imagine he was going fairly high in drafts. So if people were listening to us, at least they stayed away from Allen and didn't waste a high draft pick on him. Now, obviously, the Chad Johnson stuff didn't work out, and Binnington, whoever scooped him up off waivers, probably did pretty well towards the end of the season. But yeah, I feel a bit vindicated in our Jake Allen hate because I was really, really very down on him.
Yeah, it's ridiculous that we covered the second and third goalies on the St. Louis depth chart and still did not get the name that was eventually going to replace Jake Allen. So we saw him as right for the picking. I'm glad we did that. We all thought the Blues were going to be good. Dimitri, I think you might have been a little higher than most. So I'm going to give you props for that now. And I'm wondering, what was the tip-off for you there? Was there anything specific? What more did you see than the rest of us? If I want to really give you full Oracle credit here for the St. Louis Blues about how good they'd be.
Well, now to be fair, I don't know how much of it necessarily translated into fantasy success, especially at the start of the year. People probably cut bait on a lot of these guys. I just thought there was a lot of talent there. I liked a lot of the names. I thought guys like Robert Thomas really had a lot to offer, and so I just like the combination of guys that they had there. I don't know. I guess that was just it, really. I don't know, but did anyone really kind of blow people away from a fantasy perspective this year on this team? Vladimir Tarasenko eventually got to his 35-ish goals or whatever, but it was kind of a weird path getting there. But other than that, I feel like most of these guys did disappoint. I guess Alex Pietrangelo had a good end to the season after Colton Parayko kind of took that shutdown defensive role and allowed him to play more of a sheltered offensive type of system. So maybe, I guess, Alex Pietrangelo might be an interesting name moving forward, just if he keeps that role. But otherwise, I feel like a lot of this stuff is kind of like what we expected.
Yeah, you were just into you deserve a lot of credit. You said specifically, I love the Blues for this season. Then when we did the Eastern Conference, we were talking about, I think it was Carolina or something. You're they're my St. Louis Blues for the East. Might not have been Carolina. We'll get to that when we do our Eastern Conference. Columbus. Yeah. Yep. So I just feel you get a lot of credit. And I think it was just they had a lot of depth going into the year. They had gotten Perron, they'd gotten Bozak, Pat Maroon. We talked about, I had my smart, I thought take that, Pat Maroon's played with the previous 2 Hart Trophy winners. Maybe he'll do it again. And I was hinting that maybe Tarasenko, really Ryan O'Reilly is the guy who came closer because he's the one who at least won one trophy, won the Conn Smythe. But yeah, Pat Maroon didn't do anything, but we did call some other things. You said that Schenn wasn't going to repeat his 70-point pace, Dimitri, and you were right, and Brian agreed with you. He only ended up with a 61-point pace. And also I was trying to talk up Vladimir Tarasenko as maybe him having a higher ceiling, but you guys were both right that he's a mid-70s guy. But I still think, again, going into this year, you never know. But this time I'm not so excited about it. Now I like him more as a 70-point guy. I'm going to give up on Tarasenko breaking point per game.
But Tarasenko, it's great because he is what he is. I think, and that's not to take it. That's a compliment. That's not to take away from anything from him. I don't think we're going to get this insane 50-goal season all of a sudden where he has 100 points, but he's the most consistent goal scorer really in this league, this side of Ovechkin, where you just know it's 32 to 35 goals are just basically money in the bank at this point with him.
Right. Okay. So Vancouver Canucks, it was a short section for us then because there weren't too many guys to talk about. I just wanted to talk about Elias Pettersson the whole time. I predicted that he'd win the Calder. Probably going to happen, right?
Yep.
Got to be the front runner.
For sure. Yep.
He has to.
Brian, I called you not fun because you only predicted Pettersson for 50 points and I was predicting him for higher. And Brian, you actually said on the show, I like fun. And then you were referencing Kawhi Leonard. And look at that. Kawhi Leonard. You nailed it. So you called Kawhi Leonard being someone we'd be talking about at the end of the season.
Yeah. That's a feather in my cap.
But yeah, so Pettersson, 66 points in 71 games. We're all agreeing that that's just the start of something really special. I could see him hitting 80, 90 points. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah, the sky's the limit for him, and whoever gets to play with him, he is that type of player, kind of like the, Crosby, McDavid, whatever. It's like whoever he plays with, he's going to get them to the puck in such advantageous situations. There's going to be a lot of goals. And I guess from a fantasy perspective, the highest ceiling would be Brock Besser there, just in terms of converting those passes into goals.
Yeah, for sure. And then you want the third piece on that line, which last year we could not figure out. Like there was no. Yeah, Brandon Leipzig. Well, we got so excited about it. There was Leipzig and Josh Levo and Nikolai Goldhoben, and none of these guys could stand in the lineup, let alone on that line. So I wonder like who the random guy, like Sven Berchi seems like a good candidate, but maybe he plays with Horvat on the second line. I don't know, but that's going to be like the big discussion in September is who's playing with Pettersson, and I hope we'll have an actual answer to give you rather than just being able to present with the question by then.
Yeah, maybe it'll be an Edmonton situation and it'll just always change. Who knows? Maybe it'll be Milan Lucic, because isn't he getting traded for Louis Eriksson? Isn't that the rumor right now? I still can't decide who I think that trade is worse for. It sounds bad for both, but
I think it's worse for the Canucks. It's worse for the Canucks because they're getting the worst player and they're taking on more money and they have to protect him in the expansion draft. It's a whole mess if they trade for him.
Oh, okay. So then it should be a no-brainer. Why is this even in the news?
Well, he's from Vancouver, so bringing the hometown kid home. Who knows? It might give him a fresh start. Or at least that's what I've been told.
We were also very high on Alex Edler, and I think we pretty much nailed him. We said like he won't play much, but when he does play, he'll be good. He ended up with a 50-point pace, 34 points in 56 games. So when he played, he was great. He's a UFA now. It'll be interesting to see if he goes back to Vancouver or if Vancouver goes total youth movement with Hughes and decides like to just let the power play be run by someone else. But if Alex Edler is back there, or if he goes somewhere else, like we'll have to see then if he's still the top power play guy. But he's still someone you should have on your radar. I think just keep in mind that you're going to only have him in your lineup for like 2/3 of the season.
Yeah, and it's tough to envision him going, if he does leave Vancouver, to a better spot, because it felt like on that team, they just relied on him so much at 5-on-5 and on the power play that like just from a pure kind of opportunities and volume perspective, he was like the king of block shots and power play time. And so that stuff lends itself to fantasy. But if he goes somewhere else, he's probably not going to get that type of role. But for the Canucks purposes and for ours, for fantasy, I think Quinn Hughes getting more power play time and getting a longer and longer leash to play more on that team, I think leads to great things for everyone around him. So hopefully we get to see more of that this season.
Fun fact, on Cap Friendly, he's referenced, and I think other websites, Quinton Hughes, and it's Quintin. Learned something new today.
Nice.
Okay, so we'll call him Quinton when we're bringing him up over and over again next season. But yeah, definitely we don't want to project Quinton Hughes until we see what happens with Alex Edler, because that will tell us a lot about what the Canucks plan to do next year. Okay, so let's go to Vegas. Oh, by the way, maybe Edler could, he would have to have a really good landing spot like Detroit or the Rangers or a team that like needs a top power play defenseman. And then if he goes to like Montreal or whatever, it's like, who knows what's going to happen there. Yep. Okay, Vegas. I said at the start of our Vegas talk that I was tired of talking about William Karlsson's high shooting percentage from the previous season, because we've been talking about that like all summer. But anyways, we were right. He didn't keep up that high shooting percentage. He didn't score 40 goals. Again, he only had 24 goals. It's 56 points. He was fine. We spent a lot of time speculating on who was going to play on the second line with Pacioretty and Stasny. We were sort of debating like Haula or Alex Tuch. And Dimitri, you were really high on Alex Tuch, and actually Brian then agreed. So we were all, we all kind of agreed that Alex Tuch was the guy. I was actually the one saying I kind of liked Haula to stick there. And I don't know, maybe I don't have to say I was wrong because Haula just got injured. So I get sort of a get out of jail free card. But clearly Alex Tuch was great. But now we have Mark Stone in the picture. So bad luck for Alex Tuch, because he was close to a point per game at the start of the season before he got bumped out of the top 6. And now for next year, it's going to be tough for him if he's playing on a third line. Like, yeah, they have some good young players. Like, it won't be the worst people to play with if that guy from the KHL comes in, whose name I'm blanking on.
Nikita Gusev.
Yeah, Nikita Gusev. Yeah, so there could be a really good third line, but like how much production really is there to go around? So I like Alex Tuch, but obviously I like Mark Stone a lot more.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment of riches, I think, for the Golden Knights from a real on ice perspective. It's great to have that type of third line scoring with him and Eakin, and maybe even Cody Glass gets called up and has a big year. But from a fantasy perspective, unless there's an injury and he gets to move up into the top 6, I just don't see the number of opportunities from like an ice time perspective there to warrant a high draft pick.
Yeah, that's the big problem with Vegas. And Elon, you mentioned Erik Haula. Like, even when he does come back, the dream is over for him, right? He's got one more year in Vegas, but no hope of top 6 deployment. So you look at who's already in there. There's no daylight. And so I'm not looking to Tuch or Haula to really surprise or impress me next year, unless there's an injury, in which case I trust Tuch to step in more serviceably than Haula. But, I'm keeping an open mind about Erik Haula too.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting because also Gusev coming in, I feel like really throws a grenade into what we thought was an ingrained top six. Like, I don't think we should just assume that Gusev goes and plays on the third line, right? Like, he could bump like a Riley Smith or whoever, and he could play with Marchessault, or maybe they play Pacioretty with Stasny and Gusev. Like, so hopefully we'll get some answers in training camp, and probably we'll do a show with Dimitri where I'll talk all about the preseason lines, and then they'll last for like 2 games and they'll turn out to have been completely irrelevant.
Yeah, there's no way established player from the KHL comes overseas, comes to Vegas, gets promised a high lineup spot, and all of a sudden it doesn't pan out and he winds up leaving after a couple of days. There's no way I could see that scenario happening.
Right. Well, Gusev's no Shipachyov, right? There's differences. But yeah, Brian loves referencing Shipachyov every once in a while. I feel like it's going to be like 10 years from now and he's still going to be dropping Shipachyov tweets and getting us those sweet, sweet likes.
I'm very big on Vadim Shipachyov whenever he does get to return to the NHL.
How old is he?
Which might be never.
Yeah, I don't think it's happening.
Okay, then we talked about how Shea Theodore hadn't signed a contract yet, and then actually, Dimitri, you were saying how Eric Brandstrom is someone you were interested in. He had 4 points in 4 preseason games at the time. Now he's in Ottawa. But are you still high on Eric Brandstrom? And Theodore signed his contract, so that whole conversation was for naught. But Brandstrom is still an interesting young guy, and obviously now he's behind Thomas Chabot as far as like power play time, and also we don't know how many goals Ottawa are going to produce, but obviously that's a pretty big name that they have on their team.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously Ottawa seems pretty high on him considering he was the major piece coming back from Mark Stone at the deadline. And so, we can talk more about that when we do the Ottawa Senators and the eastern part of things. But I like Shea Theodore a lot. I mean, the way Gerard Gallant runs those defensive units, no one really plays like your kind of traditional mid-20s types of minutes. So I don't know what his ceiling is, but I feel like as the year went on last year, he just became a shot generation machine. And I really like that from his fantasy value because that's obviously going to lead to points and goals. And so if he keeps that up and he starts getting even incremental improvements in ice time, just from a pure accounting stats perspective, he's like a really intriguing sort of still sleeper defenseman just because he hasn't done it yet, but he could really explode next season.
Yeah, and you hit on the big question in Vegas, which is like, is there any defenseman worth investing heavily in? Like last year, we just thought, okay, who's the guy going to be? I want that guy. Shea Theodore was as close to the guy as anybody got with his 37 points in 79 games. You look at the rest, Nate Schmidt, 30 points in 61 games. Colin Miller, 29 points in 65 games. This is weak blue line production for a team so loaded up front. So it's kind of like unfortunate that no defenseman is going to get in on it. But I'm with you, Dimitri, that if one guy can and will, I still believe it'll be Shea Theodore. You're just not drafting even a guaranteed 45-point guy, even if you do get the right player who plays the most blue line time on the blue line with the men advantage in Vegas, which is kind of a shame.
I don't know. Like, I'm with Dimitri more than you are, Brian, because I actually think Shea Theodore is going to be a really nice value pick next year. I could see next year being the year where it all clicks. Maybe Shea Theodore next year will be the Eric Gustafsson from last year, and like he never did anything, and all of a sudden now he's going to get like 60 points. I could see it happening, but like I really like that shot generation at the end of the year that you brought up, Dimitri.
Here's my hot take: Shea Theodore has 58 points next season.
Boom. It's not hot, actually, because I agree.
That's pretty reasonable. That is a very reasonable take.
Okay, so let's end the Western Conference with the Winnipeg Jets. We spent the whole section that last time gushing over Patrick Laine's 19-year-old season. We talked about like you guys were like loving how he produced so much in few minutes, and you thought he could sustain like this high mid-teens shooting percentage that he had. You're like, most people can't, but like Laine's so good, he'll be able to. Then I asked you guys, is it crazy to consider Laine for like second overall in a draft after McDavid? And then you guys were like, I don't see why not. And we all know what happened, right? He had a decent start to the year, but ended up with only 30 goals and 50 points, only 6 goals and 18 points in his final 41 games. What happened? Did we jinx it? Was it our fault?
I don't know. It's a mystery to me. I mean, it's still funny because like everyone just views it as an abject disaster. Like, oh my God, he cost himself so much money. What a mess. Should the Jets just sell him while they still can? It's like he still scored like 30 goals. Like it wasn't a complete failure. But you're right, just based on the way it was spread out, there was like a 2-week stretch there where he had 1 million goals against the Blues, funny enough. And then all of a sudden the rest of the year there was just nothing there, completely dried up. And I think as the year went along, they really tried to get him out of his shell. They traded for Kevin Hayes. They moved him up to the top line to play with Wheeler and Scheifele and whatever. They tried all these different options and it just never really worked out for him. And I don't know, like the shot is still there. I think there's no reason to expect that he's all of a sudden like it was just like a 1-year aberration in his rookie year and that's it now. But I don't know, how high should we be on him? Like, he's clearly not in the discussion for second overall anymore, but I don't know, maybe if the hate goes too far, he could be an interesting sort of like a post-hype buy low type of guy.
I hope to get him at the right point in my fantasy drafts. I am prepared for it, and I really think there are going to be few people who want to take on that risk, and I can't blame them because, like you, Dimitri, like when I think of Patrik Laine, I'm that GIF of the guy who like looks at the camera and then the frame freezes and all those question marks appear around him.
Nick Young?
Is that who it is?
Young, yeah.
Is he a basketball player?
He was, yeah. He was playing for the Lakers at the time.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know he was famous. Anyway, that's I am Nick Young when it comes to Patrik Laine. Like, he did look worse in just about every single way, not dramatically worse in a way that I don't think he can bounce back from, but it just wasn't working. And I think back to Gabriel Landeskog, who had this like stutter year where we're like, oh my, is he actually going to be the guy that he showed he could be in his rookie season? And can he recover? And he did, with, of course, help from two elite line mates, which brings us to the fact that Winnipeg has no second line center right now. Their depth chart has, well, if Jack Roslovic is still in the picture, maybe he's the best candidate. If he's not, Matthew Perreault, Par Lindholm, and Matt Hendricks are the guys under contract in any shape or form. So that concerns me for Patrik Laine because, like you said, Dimitri, goal scoring, I mean, yeah, it was down. He had 44 in his sophomore season, only 30 last season on the same number of shots, but only 20 assists. So, like, he needs someone else to play with, and they did go and get Hayes, and then they traded Hayes. So here's my attempt at a hot take to close out the Western Conference. Matt Duchene ends up in Winnipeg.
I mean, yeah, that would be great for Winnipeg. I don't know if Matt Duchene wants to do that, but it seems like a good spot for him and for the team. Why not?
Well, here's the problem. Like, financially, they're a bit up against it. And we hear all these rumors how they're probably going to trade Jacob Trouba. Tyler Myers is going to walk. And then there's always on these rumblings that to make up for that, they're going to trade Nick Ehlers and sell low on him to get a defenseman to fill in for. I don't know what they're going to do. I think this team, just based on how disappointing the season was, is going to look quite a bit different next year. And so I think we're going to have to wait to evaluate them. But hopefully they get someone for Laine to play with because I want the world for him. I want him to score 50 plus goals again. I love the excitement. I love when he's going. And last year was just such a disappointment that I don't want a repeat of that.
I mean, it's going to be rare in your life as a fantasy hockey player to be able to grab someone who had 46 goals a couple years ago as late as you're going to be able to draft Patrik Laine this year. So he's probably worth rolling the dice on at the right time. And, this guy, like, it's not as if he also came out of nowhere in his rookie season. Like, he was drafted second overall for a reason. He's had a high pedigree upside forever. Hopefully he's doing something this summer. I'll bet you the articles are going to be coming out soon about how Patrik Laine has like changed his whole training regimen. He's in the best shape of his life. Like, this is why he's going to bounce back. And so we'll have to decide if we want to believe in that or not.
He's deleted his Fortnite account.
So with that, we are done with every team in the Western Conference. Let me go off air for a second. So I'll edit this out. But Dimitri, what do you think? I know, do you want to just power through, or do you want to like kind of reschedule and do the Eastern Conference like later in the week or something? Because it's late, but I could do it. I know Brian's like 50-50, but I'm sure Brian could do it if
I'll go either way. Yeah.
We can do whatever you guys want. I mean, next week
I could do Wednesday if you wanted to do Wednesday. I don't know if Brian could do Wednesday.
Wednesday might be a bit tight for me, just because it's draft weekend here in Vancouver, so a lot of people are going to be coming into town. So I think it'll be busy. But
I can also do Thursday, but it's also draft weekend. Or we can wait, or we can just do it right now. Like, I'm ready to go.
I mean, we can honestly wait. It's not a huge deal. Like, I probably wasn't going to run this till the following week anyway. So in theory, we could just do it like next Sunday if you guys want.
Actually, that should work because Brian, we're interviewing Cam on Monday. So we can do Dimitri on Sunday if you want to do that.
Love it. That's great.
Right. Yeah, I think that'll be better because I don't know. I don't want to not bring the energy to you.
No, of course. And I apologize for having to reschedule and move it back. It was a bit of a busy day. So I'm glad we at least got to do the first part.
Yeah. Okay. So let's close out. Now we can have a leisurely close out of the show with so much time to plug all our things. Okay. So where were we? Okay. So. And with that, that's it for the Western Conference, and that's it for part one of our recap and reassessment of all of our takes of the Western Conference from that show we did with Dimitri back in September. By the way, for anyone who wants to go back and listen to that episode, I probably should have said this at the start of the show. Maybe Brian in the show notes, you could put the link to that if people want to hear that first. It was episode 201 of Keeping Karlsson that we did the Western Conference. Then it was episode 253 of the PDO cast where we talked about the Eastern Conference. And we're going to record the Eastern Conference later on this week, and that'll get dropped in the PDO cast feed I don't know, sometime, right, Dimitri? Like whenever we do it, a few days after that.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm looking forward to it, guys.
And actually, so we right now have keepingkarlsson.com/PDO linked to that episode 253, where we discuss the Eastern Conference. So that will remain until Dimitri's new episode drops, and then I'll change that to forward to the new episode. So definitely, but anyways, you guys should all just be subscribed to the PDO cast because it's a great podcast. Dimitri comes out with new episodes all the time, just like us. He doesn't take the summer off. He's coming out with new content. He was all over the playoffs. And Dimitri, maybe do you want to tell people how to find the show and also like what you've got planned for the summer?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you guys can find the show pretty much wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Apple or whether it's Spotify or Stitcher or what have you. The show moved to Yahoo at some point during the season around the trade deadline. And so you can always go to Yahoo Sports as well to check it out there. And yeah, there's a lot of fun plans. I mean, the draft is going to be here in Vancouver this coming weekend. And so we're going to be doing some mock drafts and whatnot for that, and then covering it. And hopefully there's some trades as well. And then right through July 1st and free agency. And then before you know it, it'll be late August, early September. And we're going to be doing fantasy previews and getting ready for the coming season. So yeah, it's going to be a blast.
All right. So yeah, everyone should definitely be subscribed. I am. It's a great podcast. As far as we're going, we also have some plans. So we're going to record with Dimitri, the Eastern Conference. So you'll hear that on the PDO cast. And then we are going to be talking with Cam Robinson next week. We landed the prospect expert, Cam Robinson. So we'll be talking to him right after the draft, probably on the Monday night. So we'll probably drop that on Tuesday morning, where we'll talk about everything that happened in the draft and what his takes are on all of these prospects, who's going to be in the NHL, who's going to get points. So that's going to be a really fun episode. I love it. Look at that, back-to-backs. Dimitri and then Cam, like, oh my goodness, look, lucky us. I guess I'll take one quick second to plug something on our side. We have opened up pre-sale for our second annual NHL Audio Almanac. Did I say that right, Brian? Did I get the words all in the right order there?
I think you nailed it.
Yeah, so we're going to be recording basically an audio book where we're going to go through every single NHL team, a lot like this podcast, except it'll be more like 40-minute chapters for each team, where we'll break down all the players on that team that we think are going to be fantasy relevant. We'll come up with a projection for them. We'll break down like how we think the team's going to do. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to record that at the end of August. But you can go get in on our pre-sale with our pre-sale offer over at keepingkarlsson.com/almanac. And there's a discount actually if you become a patron of Keeping Karlsson's. You could also check out keepingkarlsson.com/patron, and you could get in on all of our patron perks for any amount of money, by the way. Over the summer, ignore the dollar amounts that are listed on our Patreon page. Just give us whatever you want, and we'll give you all of our patron perks, because we know during the summer, obviously it's not the same as during the fantasy season. But that's all I got. So Brian, unless you've got something to say, I'm ready to cue that outro music. And why don't you go ahead and read us the credits?
All right. This episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dobber Hockey and powered by our patrons. It was researched with help from... My list isn't loading, so just give me a second. I just don't want to leave anyone out.
Maybe, Brian, this time, if you didn't use Yahoo, just don't say Yahoo. Don't do that thing where you did last week. And Yahoo. Actually, no, not Yahoo.
I didn't use Yahoo, but yeah, I would have said it. You just get on a roll.
Just remove it from your list.
Help from Dobber Hockey, Frozen Pool, Dobber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey, Cap Friendly, Charting Hockey, Hockey Goalies, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, Roto World, and that's it.
Okay, Brian, we won't mention the site that Brian refuses to mention, even though we host the Cupful on it every year. But okay, great job, Brian. Thanks again so much, Dimitri, for joining us, and looking forward to talking to you in a week about the Eastern Conference.
Absolutely. Chat with you guys then.
All right, bye, Brian. Brian, you want to say your catchphrase?
Yeah, thank you, Dimitri, from me, because Elon's been doing all the thinking. I want to be your friend too. Until next time, keep on keeping Karlsson.
Cool. Okay, so
nice.
I guess we could chat on Twitter to schedule. I think this was a really good one. We'll edit it and get it out tonight, and I'll send you the link and everything.
Sounds good. All right, let's aim for I'll be free next weekend. So whenever you guys want to do it on Sunday.
Do you want to just for now tentatively say like 8:00?
Yeah, let's do it. That's actually perfect.
Okay, cool.
Yay.
Brian, that's good for you. We'll discuss if something needs to change, but I think that should be fine.
For sure. I'm looking forward to it. All right, let me know when this one's up.
All right. And thanks to everyone in the chat room, by the way. Thanks, Alex. You might be the only one. Oh, by the way, Brian, I'm Dimitri, you could go if you want. I'll just tell something, or you could stay. I don't care. But I'm meeting up with Alex in Toronto on Thursday.
Alexander?
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
You didn't invite me.
He's like visiting for like an hour. You're gonna come all the way to Toronto to come hang out?
Well, if it was Alex, I would have cleared my schedule.
Dimitri, you want to come hang out in Toronto with me and Alex on Thursday?
I mean, for an hour, I can fly out, do a 5-hour flight, get there for an hour. Yeah, I could do it probably.
If you do that, I'll definitely buy you a beer. Right. Your whole meal, actually. Everything you get is on me.
All right, I gotta get out of here. I'll talk to you guys on Sunday.
Okay, bye.
Cheers.
Bye, Dimitri.
Bye, Alex. Bye, Brian.
Bye, Alex. Thank you for inviting me. It took you, not Elon, to invite. If sadly I won't be there.
Okay, but Brian, we're hanging out at some point, right? Aren't you coming to Toronto mid-July?
Yeah.
We're gonna have our KK AGM.
Yeah. Do you remember what date we actually chose for that?
No, I have it in my calendar. But like, just so you know, live show listeners,
I hope so.
Brian and I have plans to talk about making plans for the show. So big show plans coming soon. Maybe.
Let's hope so.
Maybe the plan will be to keep the plan the same. But that's what we have to do.
We need to evolve.
Yeah, it's time to but
evolve or die.
But we'll keep the good stuff. Like, no one has to be worried that we're going to get rid of good stuff. We're just going to remove bad stuff and add more good stuff. Hopefully.
That's exactly what, yeah.
That's generally what businesses and like content creators try to do. We might ruin it. My work uses this software called Jira for our like ticket management, and they just had a UI update, and I really felt like those people, back in the day when Facebook would change, and everyone would be so mad and sign petitions about how I want the old Facebook back. Like I was all in on like, give me the old Jira back. How do I link 2 tickets? I can't figure it out. Then it turned out there was like a really convenient button, but they just made it an icon. Anyways, I don't know. I'm still getting used to it. I don't want to do that to our listeners.
You hate change.
I don't hate change, but it needs to be good. And the transition needs to be good. If we make a change, we should like ease into it. Let people know, when we used to say PDO, now we say IPP. And I don't know. That doesn't make any sense what I just said. You probably want to go, don't you?
No,
I saved you all this time. Now we can hang
I'm
out.
trying to think of something clever to say, but it's not coming.
That's okay.
When you speak to a baby for like the day, you kind of forget how to talk to people.
Right. Well, the baby doesn't talk back, so I guess that makes sense. You could say anything and you get no judgments.
Yeah, but you really try and, dumb it down.
I went to it was a going away party yesterday, a barbecue, and there were like
for a baby.
It was like there were so many kids.
Where's the baby going?
That's your best joke you could come up with?
That is the sort of thing I would say to my kid.
But yeah, there was like so many kids there, and then Dina like shows up.
That sounds annoying, by the way.
Well, there was also adults, and there was a keg actually, so that was kind of nice to drink. It was unlimited beer. But yeah, like Dina showed up.
What if it was a keg full of formula?
Oh my god!
Like baby formula.
And is it gross to drink?
Pumped.
What is it made of? Like, is it good for adults to drink?
Well, if a baby can drink it.
I don't mean like is it like poison, but I mean like, is it enjoyable at all? Like, does it have a taste?
I can tell you when she burps it smells awful.
Well, I mean, okay.
But it smells about the same normally. Like when you like, if you shake it, like we mix it, we open the lid, and then it smells like, ugh.
Oh, okay. By the way, Brian,
I would want to put it in my mouth.
I apologize. Alex beat me to it. Happy Father's Day.
Oh, thanks. Thank you, Elon and Alex, in reverse order.
Wow. I should message my brother and say Happy Father's Day.
Wow, that's nice. My brother messaged me Happy Father's Day. Did you message
your brother?
No, he messaged me first, but it was 2 minutes after my wife messaged him to say Happy Father's Day, so I don't think he was going to say it.
What do you do now that like we're both at this age where all of our friends are having babies? You even have your own baby. Like, am I supposed to call all my friends or message all my friends and wish them Happy Father's Day?
No, like I actually was not planning on wishing my brother a Happy Father's Day. Okay. But then I couldn't not.
Because I didn't finish my story. We got to the party and right away Dina like either took a baby or got handed a baby, but she was like holding a baby like the second we got there. And then like I went to go get her food or something and I came back and she was holding a different baby. She's like, I don't know. She loves holding babies. Or people like dumping their babies on her. It's one of the two.
I mean, that's great.
This is good content, right? I feel like maybe we should keep this in the actual show.
She was holding the babies and like, I don't know. Is that so weird?
I just didn't expect it. Again, she's happy. The baby's happy. Like, everyone's happy. She wasn't holding them both at the same time. It was just, she was swapping them in and out.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
She's good with babies.
Yeah, she's great. If anyone's in Toronto and needs a babysitter, Dina's great with babies. But you'll have to pay her like her rate. I mean, well, she works at Toronto Public Health, so whatever she earns there, just pay her the same rate for holding your baby.
What's her social insurance number?
Did I dox her too much, you're saying?
I don't know.
A lot of people work at Toronto Public Health. Okay. I should go then. Okay, bye. So Brian, you'll do the write-up?
Yeah.
Okay, bye everybody.
Okay, bye everybody.
Bye, Alex. See you on Thursday.
Thanks.